What's up everybody, Swillow here, and today we're going to be doing our first character guide for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So first up we have Urbosa. Urbosa is a pretty simple character, however the complexity in her playstyle comes in deciding how you're going to use her lightning enhanced mechanic. So when she enhances her moves with the lightning, this allows her to turn any move in her kit into a really strong concentrated damage attack. So before we get into all of her different moves, we're going to look at the distance on her Y string. So from this starting point, I'm just going to do her Y string and we'll see how far she moves. So I get to about the doorway, or actually like straight up to the doorway. Pretty good distance. When it comes to her Y string, it's simple but effective. The early attacks are fast and to the point, and the later parts are really strong once you have some lightning on your sword. So if you watch here, she starts to launch projectiles which have really nice hitboxes on them. They deal good damage. Overall, she has a solid Y string. Definitely gets the job done. And next up, we're going to look at the X attack. So the X attack is just a standard thrust, and uncharged, it's not bad. Like, it deals decent damage, can do a bit of weak point damage, and it can take out mobs pretty effectively. Once you press XX and do the enhanced version of it, it gets more range, more damage, just slightly more damage. So this is the regular, and this is the enhanced. So just a touch more damage, like maybe 10, maybe 20% damage. Not a lot, but you get increased range, you get increased weak point breaking properties and all that. So her X attack functions so well as when you just need that quick move that packs a punch. Next up we have YX. So YX, hold on so we can see this better. So it's a pretty standard sword combo. It doesn't do much uncharged, but it becomes most interesting once you charge it. So let's take out this guy to get some charge. Okay, so when you do the charge version of this move, she's going to continue to swipe, and it just deals nice concentrated damage. So you see there, that did about 30% of his life. Really good. Like, the thing that makes this so good is that most characters, they don't have this sort of enhanced mechanic like Urbosa does. So what Urbosa can do due to her enhanced ability is she can make any move in her kit really strong. So her YX can be really strong when you need it to be really strong by using the enhanced lightning. Now that doesn't make it like the strongest possible move she can have in her kit, but it's stronger than usual for a YX, and it works really well. It's one of my favorite moves to use. Next up we have YYX. So this is the uncharged version. Good range, good damage, works pretty effectively. Let's show it on the moblin so we can see that damage. So pretty good damage, and it has nice range too, so you can unleash this well in a, you can unleash this at a safe range, right? A range well out of their attack, depending on the enemy. Really good. But what really makes this move good is once you use the enhanced version of it. So the enhanced version of this, you can control your character and move around. You can just continue to pound damage on the enemy. Really strong. Really good. Definitely one of the best moves in her kit, especially considering how early into the string it is and how effective it is overall. We've even seen this in a lot of pre-release footage. Like, it's a very popular move among the people who previewed this game. Next we have YYYX. So uncharged, sorry, I was going for the charge version there. Uncharged, it's pretty simple. Just a downward strike with some lightning. Pretty comparable to the YYX in some ways. However, it becomes most interesting once you enhance it. So once you enhance this move, she shoots a beam. You can control this beam, you can turn it to the side, you can focus it, and it deals pretty crazy damage over time. If you do the full string on an enemy, you're going to take away about 50% of their life bar with max charge, which is pretty good. Weak point damage, it can deal about 75% on a stasis weak point. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good move. It takes a bit more to set up, and it leaves you very stationary throughout it. So you have to pick times to use it. I would say it's probably one of her least useful moves in her kit, or at least in general. Like it can be really strong in the right situations, but in general, due to the stationary effect of it and how difficult it can be to set up, it's usually one of the weaker options, but it's still really strong. So next up we have Y times 4 into X. So a standard slash combo followed by a beam. That's her uncharged version of it. Pretty good move. It's actually very similar in utility to her YX. Let me try to show this off against. So you see the damage on that is really nice before we even get to the charge version of it, right? It's just really nice. So now let's show off that charge version. The charge version is extra impressive. Let me kill this enemy because I want you to see how much damage it's going to do. Okay. So once she enhances it, it's very focused, similar to the YX. It does pretty impressive damage, and it can also do a really good amount of weak point damage. Of course, you're very stationary, and you're going to be very close to the enemy, so there is a lot of risk in using it, but the damage is really impressive, especially if you do it after a stasis. So let me show like a weak point stasis setup, and you can just really see how strong this move can be. I think it's one of her best moves in terms of breaking weak points. Like, this is definitely the move, like the go-to option that will be consistently strong in a lot of situations. So first, let's hit with the fire rod, stasis. So you see that I'm able to break his weak point gauge with that. And if I didn't actually trigger, if I wasn't close enough to trigger the weak point attack, that would do roughly 80%. So the full max charge would do a roughly 80% damage to this moblin here. You know, it's not going to be the same on every enemy because this moblin here is not the strongest enemy. But relative to the rest of her moveset, this is honestly one of the strongest moves in her kit in terms of raw damage potential. Like, if you do the max charge duration, it's going to deal 80%, which is insane. Next up, we have Y times 5 into X. This is going to be her final strong attack, and this move is really, really strong and really, really weak depending on how you use it. So it can really be the best and the worst move in her kit. And the reason I say that is because it has this really weird movement to it, which can completely mess up the follow-up. So if the initial movement messes up your follow-up, like, this move just loses nearly all of its value. So let me show this off. So she does this little zigzag thing at the start. It looks cool, but the movement can cause a lot of problems depending on the enemies and the environment and just all kinds of things. It's very strong. Let me show this off. Let me actually hit that part of it against him. So you see, it's really strong. I even think it might have like invincibility frames during it. I don't know if it's invincibility frames or she's just usually moving out of the way of attacks, but the mobility does help you. It does have some defensive element to it in terms of at least evading attacks. If not, it may just straight up have iframes. I don't really see myself get hit out of that attack much or at all. So now the follow-up. The follow-up's where things get really interesting. So she's basically just going to drop lightning all over in front of her, like a huge hitbox of it. The first initial burst and the last burst will hit even behind her and even further, but the bulk concentrated attack will hit more in front of her, but still in a nice space. So this move can deal insane damage, and it can just evaporate a weak point gauge, dude. It's insane, dude, how much weak point damage this can do. The problem is that it's her final string, which means it takes a long time to get to, which means that even though the attack itself deals crazy weak point damage, by the time you get to the attack, the enemy's weak point gauge is probably going to be pretty much finished. So you're not going to get to take advantage of it unless you kind of buffer this move ahead of time. So basically when I say that, like when you see an enemy like this, he's about to do a downward slam, I know he's going to expose his weak point gauge. So I can start prepping into the move early to get to it faster. The only problem with that is that if you choose to do that method, you're not going to be able to stasis, and it's pretty unfortunate. But let's try to do a setup right here. Let's try to show off as much effectiveness as we can. Oops, wrong move. Let me get my my Sheikah Slate back. So, and you can even see, since the move doesn't hit consistent, like depending on where it's hitting, you can get more or less damage. You can see sometimes the move was whiffing because the lightning doesn't hit in the same spot every time. So you have to consider that. It works a lot better if you can line it up to hit directly in the middle. And especially against big enemies. Big bodies will just absorb all of that. Look at that. That exposed the weak point, and then it pretty much depleted the whole thing in one go. That's also something I didn't mention. Certain moves in this game can force the weak point gauge out, and that move for Urbosa is the one. Only the enhanced part of it, right? You see the first part of it, the unenhanced part of it, the little zigzag, does not expose the weak point. However, the enhanced portion of the move does. So you see, if the enemy's not more in the center of it, they're not going to get hit by much of it, unfortunately. Anyways, that's it for Urbosa's strings. Now let's look at her Sheikah Slate abilities, and then I'll go into some tricks and tactics with her. So first we have the bomb. The bomb is pretty cool with her because it takes her airborne. And then you can do your air combos, your YYY into X. We have Cryo, very straightforward with her. She just puts a block in front of you. You can jump off that, go into your air options, or just throw it out as a counter move. We got Magnesis. Let me try to show it without the counter effect. So pretty standard. She just sort of gets some something around and just flings at him. Nothing like out of the ordinary, I would say. It can expose the weak point gauge, as you saw right there. However, it's really slow, and it exposes the weak point gauge for such a small duration of time. It kind of doesn't matter because obviously you're not going to be able to stasis after using Magnesis. Next up, we have Stasis. So Stasis, you should dash cancel this 100% of the time. I'm just going to show off the follow-up it has. So the built-in follow-up, it's sort of like a crowd control option. The only reason I would use this follow-up is for the iframes, right? So one thing that's important to mention is that when you're using Sheikah Slate abilities, you're completely invincible. So if you ever did consider using this over the dash cancel, where you can get much better damage and weak point and all that, it would be for the iframes. If you're surrounded by a lot of enemies and you just need to get some damage out on a table or within the crowds, it's really good in that regard because it is a spinning 360 area attack. So it really works well for crowd control and just the invincibility frames. Next up, we're going to talk about some of her tricks. So Urbosa doesn't have a lot of tricks, unfortunately. Like, she's really straightforward, but some of her main tricks are going to be using her ZR for lightning charge to just straight up cancel attack animations. So you can cancel attack animations and return to neutral pretty quickly using her ZR. The only thing is that there are better options for this, universal options, right? usually just dash canceling is better. I think this might save slightly, save a touch more frames than dash cancel. But the other option you have is going to be guard cancel. So you can guard cancel, which is going to save the most frames out of any sort of cancel in this game as far as I know. That step cancel or the ZR cancel for any character, this is like a universal. Not all characters can guard cancel, but like almost every character can. So you can see how fast I can return to neutral off of a guard cancel. Like I'm guard canceling the Y, I'm doing Y times 4 and then I'm guard canceling. Guard cancel. Guard cancel. So you see how fast that is with the guard cancel. Now if I show it with the ZR cancel. ZR cancel. There's definitely like a bit of a delay there, but it works. It's definitely easier to do than the guard cancel. The guard cancel is a bit challenging to do. You really have to practice it. The ZR cancel is easier. Also, one interesting thing about the ZR cancel, which was first shown by Ren Harasaki. Props to him. He's been showing off a lot of cool tech for this game since he is one of the reviewers at GameSpot. But anyways, let me show you you can use the ZR cancel in the air. So you can cancel in the air and stay airborne. So you see that all I'm doing is the Y string and then I'm using ZR cancel to cancel my attack, and it lets you stay airborne. There's not a lot of situations where you want to do this, but it works if you can make it work. Like it's actually pretty strong because she does have a good Y string in the air. It has a lot of movement. It has good range, good damage, all that. It's actually one of the better aerial strings in my opinion, if you have to use aerial strings, because I think a lot of characters' aerial strings are tragic to say the least, but she has a better one and she can cancel it and just stay in the air. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, that's it for Urbosa. Did I show off her special? I think I showed off her special. Let me just show off her special. But yeah, this hits a huge area. If you don't have any lightning, it's going to fill up 4 bars. Really good. Like her special attacks in general are pretty similar in this game. They're very homogenized in design. But she has a lot of reason to use her special strategically because she gets 4 bars of lightning off of it. So this directly bounces into her gameplay, her unique gameplay mechanic, which is really cool. And it just looks cool, you know. Just do it. It's fast, effective, good damage. I love it. Also, Urbosa has a parry. So she's one of 3 characters in this game that can parry. Link, Riju, and Urbosa. So parry is really strong in this game. It's better than Flurry Rush in my opinion. It can be a bit tricky to use, you know, that's something you have to master, but parry's really good and she's one of the very few characters in this game that has access to it. So definitely take advantage of that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments who you want to see a guide for next. I'll try to do the guides by request, because I'm not really sure what characters you guys need the most help with, or just who you want to see a guide for first. It's going to take a while for me, potentially take a while for me to do all these guides, but I want to do the guides for characters that you guys really want to see, like you really need help with. So leave comments, let me know. I'll check those out for the next guide. Anyways, peace.